Welcome back. So let's try and use a strongly typed view. Now this is another way to do the exact same thing we just did, but it's just kind of instead of right now where I have to typecast everything. Right now this is a very simple example, but I would have to cast things every time I wanted to use the viewbacks persons. Now that's kind of annoying. So why not just send in a model instead so we know exactly what we're going to use? And you can actually do that by starting out by specifying what we call a strongly typed view. So I have to tell it, I want to specify a model here, what I want to use for this view, right? So I'm saying, I want you to know that what I'm going to send in is going to be a list of persons. That's what you're going to get from me. And you might as well just know that right away, right? So that's kind of the goal of the strongly typed view. Oh, sorry, didn't want to do that. There we go. So now it knows it's expecting a list of persons to get in here. Now the cool thing is, instead of here having to pass all of this back and forth, I can actually go in and say, okay, I want to now use that model. I know it's a list of models now coming in, so I want to use that list of model directly. That's all I have to say. Now I don't even need the @ sign because it just knows that it's referencing a list of models. Notice, even when I mouse over here, IntelliSense knows we're talking about a list of models here. A list of persons here, because I made this a strongly typed view. Right? So I'm telling it all the way up here, I'm telling it everything you get from now on will be a list of persons. Okay, perfect. But how do we now pass it in? Because we don't pass it into the view bag anymore like we did before. We actually have to pass it directly into the view. But let me just outcome this to show you that we will get an exception if we do not. Actually, the cool thing here is I don't have to stop the application. I just have to save this and I'll try and refresh the page and we'll explode. Notice that I can make changes in the code directly in the HTML, but you cannot change anything while the program is running inside your CS code. So that's also an important thing to know. There are fixes, we'll look into those later. Let's try and refresh this and see what happens. Give it a second and see. I hope that I'm getting an exception, but let's see, maybe I'm wrong. It pops up here, the first part, let's continue. And I'm trying to build the view. It's trying to do something. I'm not getting to the breakpoint yet. Kaboomy! Explosion, null reference exception. It says, well, you told me that the model would be something, my friend, but it's actually null right now because you didn't send in the information about the model. Okay, so I need to pass in this persons list into the view somehow. And luckily, it's very, very simple. So I'll just try and do it directly here to see what happens. I'll edit the code here, and this is how you pass in information to a view. So you just add it inside the constructor of the view. Let's try and continue and see if that worked. I still get the null reference exception. Let's just try and run it again. It explodes. It explodes. Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's try and restart the application. See you in a second when it's restarted. So my person is back. There's nothing different to see from the view inside the browser. But behind the scenes, we're actually strongly typed now. Let me, just one more time, let me try and explain this to you because let me shut this down. And I want to use the old way and the new way. So the old way, we were very dynamic, right? We could go in here and dynamically, we could just send information to the view back. And that's perfectly fine because it's dynamic, meaning that we can send anything to the view. And that's pretty cool. But if we go in instead and say, well, we want to be more specific, we want to strongly type the view by adding a specific model for the view, this is what we're doing here. We're saying the only model that you are allowed to send, if I tried to send a list of strings, I would explode. I don't even think that, let's just try a new list of strings. Notice that I'm getting an error. It's saying, a list of string is not a list of persons, right? So it can actually even help me with IntelliSense before I even send it or start my application, explaining to me that's not allowed, my friend. You have to send in a list of persons to make this work because we bound these two together, right? Using a strongly typed view. So the strongly typed view, the cool thing down here is that I can avoid the typecast. So let's, in the old code, it looks something like this. Let me try and find it back. There we go. So in the old code, it looks something like this, where we had to typecast the view from one to the other, right? That's gone as well. We don't have to do that anymore. It's pretty awesome. Now I can just directly go in and say, I know the list of persons is coming directly from my model. And notice it's a capitalized M down when I use it, but when I specify it, it's actually a lowercase. So that's an important one too. It's lowercase here, but it's actually uppercase here, and you don't need that sign. I'll just keep putting it in there, sorry. So that was the difference between a dynamic view and a strongly typed view. So hope that makes sense. Let's continue our work in the next lessons.